person you see in this image is Harriet Cole. She was a hospital janitor, but her death brought an incredible contribution to science. In 1888, Dr. Rufus Weaver carefully extracted her nervous system, achieving a historic first. This arduous process, which took months to complete, became a teaching tool that medical students still admire to this day. This image was taken in 1926 at an amusement park in Colorado. It shows members of the Ku Klux Klan posing on a Ferris wheel, representing the dark side of that era. The Klan's influence was so widespread at the time that such displays could even make it into local newspapers. This shot captures a picnic held at the famous California alligator farm in Los Angeles between 1907 and 1953. At the time, visitors could swim in the same water as trained alligators and even dine right next to these creatures. Interestingly, such activities were seen as a show of bravery, and the farm charged extra fees for visitors to pose with the alligators. In this historic photograph, you see Princeton University students right after a snowball fight in 1893. Snowball fights were a popular tradition at the time, but despite their innocent appearance, they were far from harmless. Some students would place stones inside the snowballs to escalate the intensity of the battle. This iconic photo, taken in 1937 in the Leningrad region, shows the young pioneers, the Soviet Union's youth group. The children are wearing gas masks as part of a chemical attack drill. At the time, the Soviet Union considered preparing for war a necessity, starting from an early age. Interestingly, during such drills, the youngsters were also taught how to pose for visual propaganda, alongside learning how to protect themselves from attacks. In the 1930s London, when alarm clocks were expensive and unreliable, knocker-uppers like Mary Smith took on the task of waking workers. Mary would aim dried peas at the windows of sleeping laborers, earning about 6 pence per knock. Interestingly, this job was considered a vital service during the bustling mornings of the Industrial Revolution. One of the largest horses in history, Brooklyn Supreme, reached a staggering weight of 3,200 pounds and stood 2 meters tall in the 1930s. His massive size earned him worldwide fame, and he was admired wherever he was exhibited. Introduced in Paris in 1932, the cyclomer was an innovative bicycle designed for both land and water use. However, unable to adapt to the technology and demands of its time, this design remained a prototype and never became widespread. In 1955, Las Vegas had not yet achieved its glittering fame. That year, Life magazine predicted that this barren land would witness a massive boom, and they were absolutely right. The person you see here is one of the subjects of French neurologist Guillaume Duchenne. He was attempting to evoke emotions by electrically stimulating facial muscles. Imagine, in the mid-19th century, science went to such lengths to understand human nature. The ship you see in this old photo is the steamship Princess May. In 1910, it ran aground off the coast of Alaska due to heavy fog. Remarkably, none of the nearly 150 passengers were harmed, a fact considered nothing short of a miracle. Interestingly, the ship was fully salvaged after the incident and returned to service. In the 1930s London, this incredible sight was an ordinary scene. Mothers would place their babies in cages hanging outside windows to provide them with fresh air. Surprisingly, no accidents or fatalities were reported with this method. The modern childcare ideas of the time were truly this unconventional. The person in this photograph is Robert McGee. In 1864, as a 13-year-old orphan, he survived a brutal attack by the Sioux tribe. Despite being scalped, he managed to stay alive, and this event went down in history as one of the most striking survival stories of the Wild West. This image captures a horse diving show from 1905. Popular in the 19th century, these performances featured horses, sometimes with riders, plunging into water from heights of up to 18 meters. In the 1920s, hundreds of young women working in watch factories would return home with glowing bodies due to their exposure to radium. This toxic substance caused spinal collapse, jaw disintegration, and long, painful battles with cancer. This tragedy inspired the workers' rights movement known as the Radium Girls, and played a crucial role in transforming workplace safety standards. In 1951, this competition at Palisades Amusement Park in New Jersey showcased beauty standards in a rather unconventional way. Participants in the Most Beautiful Legs contest wore pillowcases over their heads so the judges could focus solely on their legs. In 1951, this unusual competition at Palisades Amusement Park in New Jersey highlighted beauty standards in a uniquely quirky manner. The Most Beautiful Legs contest required participants to wear pillowcases over their heads, ensuring that the judges evaluated only their legs without being influenced by their faces or identities. This iconic photo captures Salvador Dalí posing for Dalí Atomicus in 1948, a collaboration with American photographer Philippe Halsman. Exploring the concepts of motion and suspension, the image features objects frozen mid-air. Remarkably, it took 28 attempts to achieve this stunning composition. This eerie photograph is an example of Halloween costumes from the past. The intricate mask details and the simplicity of the outfit reflect the era's perception of fear. While the exact date and location remain unknown, such an image inevitably sparks our imagination. In 1939 Montreal, women wore plastic hoods to shield themselves from snowstorms. At the time, this design was seen as a stylish way to protect both their eyes and makeup from the harsh winter weather. In this strange photo, you see Mary, known as Big Mary, who performed for years with the Sparks world-famous circus. However, her story ended tragically in 1916. In the town of Irwin, Tennessee, Mary was arrested for allegedly killing her trainer. The incident stemmed from the trainer's violent use of a hook to punish her. She was publicly hanged with a crane, marking a grim chapter in history. During the 1927 Tour de France, cyclists tried smoking cigarettes as an energy-boosting method. At the time, it was believed that smoking opened up the lungs and enhanced performance. In 1929, during a raid in Detroit, an illegal distillery was uncovered. Agents poured tons of stored alcohol out of the windows, dramatically showcasing the strict measures of the Prohibition era. The Brewster body shield, developed during World War I in 1917 to 1918, was the United States' first body armor. Weighing around 18 kilograms, this chrome-nickel-steel armor provided genuine protection against bullets, marking a significant advancement in battlefield safety. This giant octopus-shaped balloon used during World War II is an example of barrage balloons trained at Camp Tyson in Tennessee. These balloons were designed to create airborne obstacles, preventing enemy aircraft from carrying out successful attacks. This peculiar device, called the Krümel Auf, was an experimental barrel attachment developed by Nazi Germany during World War II. It was designed to allow soldiers to fire around corners or over obstacles. However, it saw little practical use in the field. This 1910 photograph showcases an early prototype of roller skates, enhanced with pedals and wheels. This innovative design went down in history as a fascinating precursor to modern roller skates. This late 19th century photograph shows a Chinese woman with bound feet. Known as the Golden Lotus, this ideal was imposed on young girls for over 1,000 years, inflicting significant physical pain in pursuit of beauty. In the winter of 1936, a shopkeeper in Denmark came up with a unique sales tactic by hanging over 1,000 coats on the scaffolding of his store. The crowd grew so large that the police had to intervene, but remarkably, every single coat was sold. In 1908 New York, two men are crafting a death mask. These wax or plaster casts were often made to honor the deceased and used for sculptures or exhibitions, preserving their likeness for posterity. In this weird photo, the Chinese man was found guilty of speeding and sentenced to wear a heavy wooden cage around his neck. This form of punishment was practiced in East Asia for centuries as a means of public humiliation and restraint. This photo features Jack, a baboon who worked on South African railways for an impressive 9 years in the late 19th century. Remarkably, he performed his duties without making a single mistake. This is Laika, the first living creature sent to space. On November 3, 1957, she was launched aboard the Sputnik 2 spacecraft from Kazakhstan. This groundbreaking moment in human history came at the cost of great sacrifice. This steel helmet, splinter goggles, and steel dagger armor were designed for the British Army during World War I. Created to provide protection and an edge in close combat, these pieces represented a blend of practicality and innovation on the battlefield. In 1925, German youths creatively repurposed bicycle tires as swimming aids. This improvised design served as both a practical and fun way to improve their swimming skills. During World War II, around 1945, a soldier sprays the interior of an Italian home with a mixture of DDT and kerosene to combat malaria. This method was widely used for malaria control at the time, but the harmful effects of DDT on the environment and human health would only be discovered later.